Dr. Moyo, thank you so very much. Finally, we are here. Thank you for honoring our invitation. And really, from our side, it's an honor to host you here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure always to share with, especially young people, a conversation about our country because the future of our country is your future. So let's
Mm,
go and understand and see what we can do at a very personal level to create the future that we want, especially that
mm.
young people want and deserve.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Usually we have, teasers that we play, but today I really want to get straight into it because I do feel that we have got a lot to go through. So I won't be wasting time because I just want us to get straight at it. But I think if we were to just start this conversation from a point where we try and understand you, we did post your extensive biography this afternoon, and some of the people have already been interacting with it and commenting on how experienced and decorated you are. But if we were to really maybe just start off from a point of saying, if you were to introduce yourself to our guest this evening, where would you say, what would you say, how would you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm a Zimbabwean, a proud Zimbabwean, and clearly I would like my country to work so that, that Zimbabwean passport, soon after independence, something that some of you may not understand. Soon after independence, we were proud to be owners of a Zimbabwean passport. It said everything you needed to be said about you. And I would like us, and that happens when your country is successful and is respected by other people naturally. And
Mm,
for me, as a Zimbabwean, that's what I would like to contribute to putting Zimbabwe back in that place where we are is a place which we can be proud of, a peaceful place, a country where there is peace, there is prosperity, and those things automatically lead to you being respected by other people. That's what I would
yeah.
like to be to creating.
Yeah, yeah, very well. You've worked both in the private and public sector, and we saw you coming into, yeah, one would say the political scenes at a point where you were serving under the former president of Zimbabwe, Robert Gabriel Mugabe, as a minister in his cabinet. And obviously in 2017, 2018, we saw you come back into the political, scenery with APA. Would you say that politics and just serving your country is something that has just been innate and inbuilt in you?
I don't want to say that, but I think
Mm,
you go through life, you go to different countries, you experience life in different facets, and you also get to know the potential of your own country.
mm,
It is very clear to me that Zimbabwe does not have to be where it is today. If you look at yourself as a professional, if you are in a company, you want to succeed. You want your colleagues in that company to know you personally as successful, but also you want other companies to recognize your company as a good company, successful company. And as a citizen, I think there is a similar feeling.
mm,
A particular country, my the impression that other people have of that country is part of how you are perceived as a person.
mm,
At the moment, Zimbabweans, wherever you are in the world, and no matter how successful you are, I can guarantee you that part of your image, sadly, is to do with how Zimbabwe is perceived. You can't escape it. So if you want to complete a positive image at a personal level, you have also to try and contribute to creating the image of a country in a positive light.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Very, 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 very true. And I guess it's something that every Zimbabwean that is listening here should be taking note to say that our country is not in a good state, and we are the only people that can change it. We can't expect America to come and change our situation,
I
and we
mean,
really have to start.
to make this sound, because I know that conceptual thinking can be a problem sometimes. Let me
Yeah.
illustrate what I mean. If you meet a Japanese person in the street today, in your mind, you are meeting, yes, an individual, but through that individual, you start also carrying an image of the country behind the image.
Mhm.
Japan and whatever, technology, success, and it's the same every time. Whether it's Singapore, whether it's Germany, you meet the individual, but as you look at them and hear where they are from, you complete a picture which includes what they are carrying, if you like, as baggage, depending on where they're coming from. If you get into a meeting and you say something really smart and you're contributing positively, I can guarantee people you are sitting with, deep down, they are sort of asking themselves, how is it possible to combine this intellect with a country with such a poor image? They won't say it to you. They won't say it, but they will be thinking it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. They won't say it, but they'll be thinking it. Ladies and gentlemen that are watching, please do share the stream if you're watching. I see the questions have already started to come. We're going to just gently get into it. If there are Zimbabweans that you know that are maybe probably watching Date My Family, they should not be there. There's a young Zimbabwean that you know that is not here. Please be sure to just invite them. Tonderai watching from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you very much for joining the platform. But I just want Dr. Moyo, people to know you a little bit. And given your experience really socially, professionally, you have done very well. And I was just keen to know that what has been, your secret ingredient towards, success. If you could share that with us.
I suppose, let me answer it through, again, an illustration of a question that I'm asked by a lot of young Zimbabweans.
Yeah.
Actually, not just Zimbabweans, a lot of young people. A lot of young people are inclined to ask me about how I've managed my career, if you like, with a view to saying, can we learn from it in order to manage ourselves as well? And my answer is never different. It's always the same, and it's very simple. My attitude in life has always been that when I'm engaged in something, I do my best to deliver on what I'm engaged in. I don't care about a promotion or what happens next year. Your best recommendation is the job you are doing now. Your best reference point is the job you are doing right now. If you excel at the job you're doing now, the world is watching. People will come to you. You won't need to look for a job. They will come to you because as you execute what you're doing now, people experience you in real life. And that's what they're going to go after.
Powerful, really powerful stuff. I myself was one of those, young people that, you look at you and would say, what have you done, so that we take that template. And I guess that it's really you redirect our focus when you say that, what you're doing now is very important and critical to where you're going. Do it to the best of your abilities, and that's really a fundamental point. But just one more thing before we get into the case of really Zimbabwe and just trying to dissect this huge elephant that is before us. A lot of young people are here. They're struggling, majority of them in foreign countries, and just trying to make a means, make a living. I myself, being one, not living in our country. If you were to advise young people just taking this opportunity because they are not going to maybe get this opportunity again, on how to thrive in the face of obstacles, what would you say?
Well, there is again a very popular saying which maybe sometimes we just use very glibly without taking to heart, and that is, whatever does not kill you makes you stronger. Okay, whatever does not kill you makes you stronger. So when you're struggling, as you put it, understand that your struggle, as long as it doesn't kill you, is making you stronger. It enables you to face bigger challenges that will be thrown at you in future. So once you frame it that way, you begin to almost like embrace the struggles as an athlete does. The concept of training, going to the gym, it's painful, but because they got clarity about where they are headed, the objective, they accept the pain at the moment in order for them to reach their goal. It's a necessary for you to reach your goal.
Yeah, no pain, no gain, some have said. So it is a process, and you can't skip the process. You can't run away from the process. Endure, and as long as it does not kill you, it will make you stronger. You get lessons from it. It gives you, a point of reference, and those are all positives that can come out of obstacles and boundaries and limitations at times. Right, perfect. People, let's invite people onto the stream. Let's share this link at far and wide, as far as we can, because really we are now starting to get into the most important part, the relevant questions, the question of Zimbabwe. Dr. Moyo, in less than 3 months, we shall be turning 41 years, 4 decades of being independent. So as we just start this, discussion, I just want to hear where your mind is at. Can you tell us some of the highs, some of the lows in your experience, obviously, when it comes to the question of Zimbabwe in the 4 decades that we have had independence?
Again, I want to frame it just slightly differently, but I'm going to answer your question. I frame it in a manner that I hope will communicate a positive message in terms of our journey. My observation is that anybody at individual level or at a national level who does not make a mistake, does not learn, and therefore does not grow. That's my starting point. Therefore, the critical issue is not that you've made a mistake. The critical issue is whether you've learned from the mistake in order to behave differently in future.
Yeah.
Now, so 40 years is a long time. It's a very short time, depending on what context you are putting it in. In the context of a nation, 40 years is nothing. The question we should continuously ask ourselves, though, is whether that 40 years has been an investment which helps us to create a Zimbabwe that we want. And so we should be asking ourselves the question of what lessons have we extracted from this 40 years, which we can then help us to prepare differently in order to create a different Zimbabwe. So Zimbabwe at the moment has got no jobs, virtually no industry. Infrastructure is now destroyed. All of this, when I put it this way, are negative outcomes. My next point is there some positive in terms of lessons which we can apply to reverse all of that? That is the critical question. What are the lessons which will enable us as a people, as a nation, to create a Zimbabwe which will in 5-10 years time be describing very differently? We learned these things, and this is what we created from those lessons. About 5 years ago, I would argue that Americans made a big mistake in the electing Trump. It took them 4 years to experience Trump and learn. And for me, it was clear that Trump was never going to get a second term. Never. But the only reason he didn't get a second term is because Americans understood that they had to act at a very personal level, vote in huge numbers in order to make sure he did not get in. They took personal responsibility. They didn't sit in a lounge somewhere and say to Trump, oh, we don't want you, and just stop at that. They understood the actions they needed to take at a very personal level in order to stop Trump coming back. Same thing with us. There is no difference. We are unfortunate we have to multiply by 10. It took them 4 years. It's taken us 40 years. So that's. But if we can extract lessons and apply them to changing the trajectory of our country, that would have been a very good investment.
Dr. Moyo, funny enough that you say that. Then the question that follows is that, are we learning? Are we learning from, 1997, 98, when we paid out 50,000 to all soldiers and that hit us? Are we learning from 2000, 2001 when we took the farms and we told the West that, we can survive on our own? I'm not saying that the land reform program was bad, but how it was implemented and how then when international community responded, how we spoke to them as a country that really needs to be living in this global village. Are we learning from 2007, 2008 inflation and what happened from printing, bills of dollars? Are we learning as a country? Are we learning as a people?
Well, I think that's the big question. To be honest with you, that's the big question. And if I go back to our campaign in 2018, I would have to ask exactly the same question, because the inclination of Zimbabweans is not to take personal responsibility. Remember what I said about America.
Yeah.
The people took individual responsibility. When you go to vote, it's as an individual. The act of registering to vote is an individual. But those individuals add up to a huge number, to the 80 million that essentially voted against Trump. Okay? But it starts with the individual. When I was campaigning, you could tell that Zimbabweans thought it was my project. It was a Nkosana Moyo project. It was not their project. They wanted me at a personal level to do things for them. They thought that by voting for me, they would be doing me a favor. They didn't understand it was their investment at a very personal family level to change their country. So to some extent, you're right. I think your question is almost rhetorical. You are implying by using examples that we are not learning. And I dare say I'm inclined to agree with you, because when we look at the evidence on the ground, it suggests we are not learning. We've not understood that fundamentally this is individual responsibility. When you support Nkosana, you should do it understanding that you are making a personal family investment to change the fortunes of your family, changing your country. You are not doing it a favor. For as long as you think you're doing Nkosana a favor, we've got a problem.
Yeah, indeed. I was following very closely, your political run myself, and a lot of comments were coming in. I think we're going to get into that a little bit later. I just don't want to derail the conversation a little bit. So, I think we're going to get that to that a little bit later. I see, the questions coming in. Mopeko Legacy is saying that good question. Are we learning? Some questions coming in, Tafimuzi. I see your questions. Hopefully, when we get to the right time, James, I do see your questions coming. When we get to the right time, we shall be, addressing some of those. I will be picking. Trust me, I will be picking from some of these questions. I just, I was reading, your a document that APA wrote, and you were speaking a little bit about, policy making and the process involved. And one of the things that is involved in that process is to learn and understand, the problem at hand. I just wanted to ask, in terms of Zimbabwe, how has, politics influenced the socio-economic situation that we find ourselves in today?
Well, so I think we again look at what we are experiencing and what we've experienced. The politics of Zimbabwe are the politics of looking after the politicians, not of looking after the citizens. Well, at the same time that our roads are being destroyed, the infrastructure is being destroyed, our hospitals have literally stopped working, they've got no, and so on. Our schools now, the standard of education is only in name and so on. At the very same time, look at how many new cars politicians buy themselves out of citizens' money. The prioritization tells you that the politics of Zimbabwe are not politics about the people. They are politics about extracting from the people to support the lifestyle of the politicians. For as long as that is the case, and where does that come from? It comes from us as the people not choosing the correct leaders. Ultimately, you can't stop at the politicians. They don't choose themselves. We choose them. We are responsible. We are just the same way as they removed Mugabe, and they claimed they were removing Mugabe for us. The evidence is they were removing Mugabe for themselves, not for us.
And we celebrated. We went in the street and we endorsed that move as citizens. So it means we were part of that process.
Yes, we were, and I think we should not be too hard on ourselves because we were so tired of Mugabe. We wanted change. That is clear. We just did not realize that by letting the same organization continue with the same culture, with the same people, it was just an extension of the same Mugabeism, not the Mugabe personally, but the culture he had developed in the country. And the question therefore is, again, trying to put a positive spin on this. Yes, we made a mistake. Anybody can make a mistake. His question is, what have we learned and how are we going to use it?
Yeah. Yeah. Important question following up. I think after, when people went to holidays, for holidays in Zimbabwe, and at a certain point in time, early January, people were starting to come back, and pictures of the border flooded with citizens emerged. And one of the comments that came on Twitter, I'm just looking for it, it came from Fadzai Mahere, who is the MDC Alliance spokesperson. She says, the dignity people suffer when they endanger themselves to flee poverty, injustice, and the Zimbabwean crisis to go abroad is moving. Where would Zimbabwe be if it had been governed competently over the last 4 decades? We need new leaders, she has claimed, close quotes. So my question is to say, is leadership incompetency one of our major problems in Zimbabwe, and maybe to the greater, Africa? And I just want to tie this with something that we spoke about a little bit earlier on, and say that should we make then competence be a prerequisite before we elect you? Because we've been seeing a lot of, especially in Africa, well, not only Africa after the Trump case, where we see, you just have to have war credentials. Once you have war credentials, you can be a president.
Okay.
So should competence be a prerequisite?
Listen. This is you think you're asking a very simple question, but it's not. It's a very asking. Hitler was very competent. We were extremely competent. And from a technical point of view and motivation, Hitler, almost like as a leader, he almost pulled off what was amazing given the numbers that you were dealing with, the state of Germany against the world, so to speak. Incredibly. Competence. So let me use another example. The Beitbridge board, I've traveled through Beitbridge a countless number of times. The chaos you see at Beitbridge is deliberately created. Deliberately. Because the intention is to create so much discomfort to make people pay in order to get out of it. It's competence. It's just evil competence. So when you ask about competence, be careful, okay? It's not enough. It's not enough. Competence depends also on the intention. The corrupt system in Zimbabwe is built actually on deliberately making people uncomfortable to induce them to pay in order to comfort. It takes competence to do that. So it's the intention behind the competence that you always need to look out for. What do these people, in spite of their competence, what is their intention? The whole Holocaust, and that was a competently structured exercise, but it was evil. What Zimbabweans are going through, the operations of CIO, they are very competent people, but intentions. So let's not be simplistic. Let's look, and the only thing that tells you about intention, kind of a good indicator, is history. What we call track record. In the history of this individual, what is it they've done before, which gives me the impression that their intentions are good intentions? Okay? I hope that clarifies how we should frame the way we look at things. Yeah.
It does, but something that you were mentioning, and I think it speaks to Chichi is asking a question here. She says that so how then do we get out of this current messy situation that we have here? And I think I'm just going to marry this with what you just said when you said that the situation at Bedford border post is deliberately created, and that is people working there are individuals, and perhaps it's bigger than what we think, because I think now we are creating a culture of corruption, a culture of individualism. Because I'll tell you of a story that I just recently heard. I won't mention the name of the school, but there's a headmaster that's an owner of a private school in Zimbabwe, and what they're doing is that they're paying their teachers close to nothing, but that the students or the learners that learn there are paying in US dollars. And I guess we won't understand because we're looking at this situation from outside. But what I'm just saying is that there's now a tendency to be individualistic, to try and gain from every situation, and we are forgetting this thing about society, community, Ubuntu. They're just disappearing.
Okay, so let's go back to the school example, and then let me again, and I hope you don't mind this conversation, me correcting you a little bit, and hopefully try to understand certain things which may appear one thing, but you need to understand the bigger system, almost like the ideology behind it. The owner of this school is not paying the teachers nothing. He's paying them something. But what you need to understand, he's paying them only enough to keep them there. Only enough to keep them. That's bad capitalism, exploiting capitalism. Because the whole environment is such that these teachers now have got very few options. He has pegged his pay at a level where these teachers, because they've got no options, they can't walk away. And therefore he's able to exploit them. It means his intentions, I go back to intentions. He is very smart in a bad capitalistic way, exploiting rather than collectively owning and being proud, creating a school where the teachers themselves are proud to be part of this system and doing their best to educate the kids to the level. He's keeping them there only so that they don't walk away. But what those teachers are also then going to do is to look for other opportunities to supplement the little that he's paying them. And what is these teachers won't have time to teach the kids.
Yeah, so it's a ripple effect.
Yes, but I'm just trying to show you that we need to be a bit more careful in the analysis. Yeah. You are right that our country is developing, is forcing people to become very selfish and look after number one for survival. We are destroying the concept of creating a society. Zimbabwe is not. It's not. But it starts from the top.
Yeah.
Zimbabwe can be changed very, very quickly by the top behaving differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. It starts from.
Actually, I think Thomas, to an extent, is agreeing with you. He says, how can any competent professional achieve anything constructive under a corrupt and oppressive leader? By now, you know that no minister in Zimbabwe can achieve anything under a ZANU-PF leadership. That is very interesting, because I saw a question at the top, the way he ends his question, and it was from Tafi Musa, and he was saying that during your current, your years as minister, I think in Mugabe's, regime, are there things that you think that we were achieving at that point and time, or are there successes that you can attribute to really trying to go at this notion to say that you cannot change, because many people say we're getting into this party so that we can change it from within, and it's a concept of some sort. Is this possible?
I think by the time I was invited to join government, it was already too late. Zimbabwe achieved in the earlier part of our independence, let's say the first 10 years or thereabouts. If you look at our health system, our education system, it all came together because at the beginning, Well, if you go back and do your research, the first cabinet that Mugabe put together was full of competent people. And those people, including people like Fei Chung, Zingai Mutumbuka, and the likes, who genuinely at that point had come out of a revolution that they still believed in. They still believed in the revolution for the society, not for themselves. But as time went on, these people who Mugabe started putting in his cabinet after themselves, not after the society. By the time we got to the time I was invited, the 2000s and thereabouts, Zimbabwe was already on the downslope. The way we managed land reform, land redistribution, Zimbabwe had agricultural colleges, Gwebi, for instance. People were educated through these places, and those people were not prioritized to get the land. The land was given to friends and politicians and people how to use the land who had not been trained, yet we as a country had people who were trained who could use the land. Distribution had to be done. It had to be done. But the way we did it and who we gave the land to was a total disaster.
I'm going to, because when you're speaking, there's many issues. I think it's not easy to analyze the situation of Zimbabwe, but we have many people, including one of an uncle of mine that I was speaking to about a week or two ago, and we were just discussing. He went to war, God bless his soul, and for the effort and the sacrifice that he did for our country and for us, this generation. But the conversations that we have are in such a manner that there is still a strong belief that the cause of ZANU-PF is against white monopoly, white supremacy, and etc. Yet, obviously, we do have problems as big as corruption and much more bigger problems that we're facing. And we have a black government which claims to be for the people, but sometimes some people say it was even better pre-1980. I don't want to get into that. So,
because I'm that old, I can tell you it definitely was better. It was better. I grew up during Ian Smith's time. I was in a rural setting with agriculture, DCs and extension services and so on and so on. Zimbabwe was better. But we went to war because Zimbabwe was not a fair society. It was better, but a fair society. And we were right to go to war, to want to change it to a fairer society. That's not where we are today. Yeah.
It's scary to admit that Zimbabwe was better. It's actually very scary to be admitting, such things. But as you say, it is the truth.
Guys, it's only scary if you get emotional. If you are not scary, like I told you before, mistakes can be turned into positives. You've got the capacity to analyze and understand where the mistakes were and what you need to correct. Lesson here, let me again help you young people. The lesson here about Zimbabwe having been better is that your enemy does not, because before independence, we thought that enemy and the white were synonymous. And in a false way, we thought after independence, black and father and the responsibility are synonymous. Now, black is not necessarily your friend. White is not necessarily your enemy. Okay?
Yeah, and I think you just answered a question that had just come through to say from Bobby Macomb, where he says that, but are we a fair society now? And basically that's that. I mean, a famous saying is that when leaders become oppressors or liberators become oppressors themselves, which is really an interesting topic. But I want to get into a slightly different, question. And we say leadership in Africa is somewhat the same, right? We have governments that are led by much older people who seem not to care about the interests of the young people and who seemingly they are oppressive in nature. If you want to say something, if you want to speak out, you cannot. How do we change this leadership style? Because it is a leadership style, instill fear, and they will follow. instill fear, and they will do whatever we say.
Guys, again, I worry about this age-based generalization. They are all young people. Africa generally is led by bad old people. It does not mean that older people are bad people.
Yeah.
Africa, some African countries have been led by very bad young people. If you go and study your history, look at the civil war of Sierra Leone. Okay, you discover that I think it's one point Sierra Leone, the 20-year, between 20 and 30 years old national leader, disaster. So it's not ageism. It's accepting that all age groups and all genders, you've got good and bad people. We need to take personal responsibility in how do we go about identifying good people irrespective of their age and irrespective of their gender. Because a lot of the time, the signs are there from history to tell you that this person is going to be a disaster. We are not we don't take personal responsibility in terms of doing our homework in order to inform us in terms of what choices to make. We tend to want to blame. We need to learn to take personal responsibility. We choose bad leaders, irrespective of their age. You know, if you take the case of Zimbabwe, the violence perpetrated in Zimbabwe at election time or any other time is not actually perpetrated by old people. It's young people who go beating up people.
Interesting fact, and it's a true fact. That's why I'm laughing. It is really an interesting fact, something that sometimes you would not have necessarily thought about. But I want to come back to this. I'm not going to let you go, because our constitution in itself is then ageist, because if you think about it, you're not allowed to run for presidency if you're below 40. But yet, in the same vein, we allow someone that is 90 years old to carry on running a country. Where is the logic there?
No, I agree with you. I agree, but don't get caught up in that stupid, very superficial ageism. I broader and understand bad people exist across ages, across genders. Good people similarly exist across ages and across genders. One thing I can say, however, when you get good people and you get people who are able to combine the experience of age and the energy and innovativeness of youth, you can't lose.
Yeah, powerful.
Yeah, and it is that nation that we are failing. In fact, I should include the gender issue. Women have a way of doing things and looking at life, which again, if you combine gender, age in terms of experience and energy and innovation in terms of youth, and almost like a much more, how can I put it? Less controversial approach of females in part. Generally, I'm generalizing. You get the best of both worlds. So our challenge, an integration challenge. How do we look for the good in all of these elements of our society and combine them? Then we win.
Yeah. So I have a question, and I see your time is not our friend, and there's still a lot to go through. But an interesting question. Violence against citizens by the state has meant that people remain silent on issues that directly affect them. And we have, examples of Takudzo Ngadziwore, Joanna Mamombe, all these cases of violence against especially young people that are trying to voice and trying to stand. And usually I'm just referring to young people again because the platform itself, we're trying to get young people to, get into the habit of acting positively towards, whatever it is that is the good and positive end goal. How do we give them a voice in a country where there seems to be?
So the question is, let's go back in time. It should have been an obvious thing that now there is no way you're going to win. No?
Yeah.
So it's not so much about the fact that the other person has got a machine gun and you've got a a bow and arrow. It's a question of firstly understanding and accepting that that is a fact. And second, saying to yourself, how do I use my brain to make this disadvantage become not a non-issue so that I come out on an equal or better basis? It's a question of... So if the other side has got this power, but that power is material power, I would think that younger people are smarter than older people. They've got more energy than older people. They are more innovative, like I've just told you, than older people. Your challenge is, how do we harness these things at a strategic level to outmaneuver the other side? That is your question. That should be your question.
Yeah, it's not an easy one to answer.
But if you start by asking the right question, you start for the answers in the right space.
Yeah. There's a question, Dr. Moyo, that directly speaks to what you are referring to right now, and it is from John Yohane, who is in the UK. He says, "Is removal by force military means not the only option left for us as Zimbabwean?" And then he quotes John Locke, who says, in political philosophy, he says that the right of revolution or right of rebellion is the right or duty of a people to overthrow a government that acts against their common interest and or threatens the safety of the people without cause. So you are now fighting a government with machinery, and is it a good thing to be thinking of mobilizing machinery to go against the government?
My view would be very bad strategy, because you are not likely to win. Firstly, the chances of you being able to get international support, get access to the materials you need to fight at that level, chances are very remote. And I think you failed the strategic question. Younger people, you've got instruments of countering these people that are smarter instruments than guns. Young people got the numbers. Young people are just not looking for the answer in the right place. That's it. You are not looking at how to use your numbers. You are not looking at how to use your networking capabilities. You are not looking at how to use your social media platforms properly. If you combine all these things, I can guarantee you, and then mobilize the same to mobilize the numbers for elections, in terms of participate in elections and protect elections, not through being bought, but through turning up and making sure that you are election agents, they cannot win. It's because we are not doing all of these things that are easy to do, actually, that we begin to look for exotic means. This is very esoteric, I can guarantee you, this rebellion stuff and arms and so on. Very esoteric. The probability of winning through that route is minuscule. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
But the other methods are there and open, and you've got the numbers to execute and win. And the question is, why are you not doing it?
But I think I'm going to vouch for, young people. I think we are trying in our own ways, and the instruments of states constantly are being used to shut down any form of different ideology. And I'm going to bring in the issue of Uganda.
I can look at the numbers. Young people don't vote in the numbers that they should. That is a fact. They don't. They protested and make a lot of noise, but when it comes to taking action, young people.
But I'm again, and I understand, totally agree with you, and myself again, I'm actually on a learning spree as well, as we discuss, and I believe in a lot of young people that are here with me, and Nyasha Nemaja coming in and saying, true, indeed we need strategies. And I just wanted to speak about these strategies, get into these strategies a little bit more. We've seen Bobby Wine has been trying to use music, trying to use the internet. We've seen Hope Ochimono trying to be on the Twitter, speaking about these ills as much as he can. The rise of Ivan Mawarire. I know these are all individuals, but individuals that are rising up and trying to speak. But we've seen how, the state responds. So
No, but
what are these
the way that
strategies from a practical point of view?
so let me try to simply reduce it to about 60 to moving towards 70% of African population, Zimbabwe included, are young people. All our modern institutions, in terms of decision making, no matter how imperfect they are majoritarian. Majoritarian.
Yeah.
What it means is if you mobilize the numbers of young people to make sure that these young people go and register to vote, turn up and volunteer to be election agents to protect the counting of that vote, I can assure that it will become much, much more difficult for the other side. Much more difficult. So I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm saying think strategically. I don't believe in making yourselves martyrs because I think that's silly. Martyrdom is what I'm asking for. Strategic action is what I'm asking for. Strategic action, not emotional martyrdom kind of action. Strategic action.
Yeah. Chipo Williams coming in and saying, elections we have tried so many times. Literally, we won't beat them.
No, but
Sneaky coming in.
I say, look, analyze the numbers. The numbers tell you that is not true.
Yeah.
The numbers tell you
says,
it's not.
Sneaky coming in and saying, I think we can come to the conclusion if only the elections are free and fair. The young people are being suffocated.
So let me tell you, there is nothing. So what is fair? What does fair? That's the other thing that young people don't seem to understand. There is an English expression which says, all is fair in war and love. What do you think it means? Please ask it to answer for me. All is fair in love. What does that mean?
I'll ask all viewers to just try answer that question very quickly. A quiz that has come through. All is fair in love and war. What does that mean? Can we see the answers? Coming as Dr. Moyo continues to teach us here.
Yeah, because I think once you get the answer to that question, you will understand how to act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still waiting for that indication of what that means. Yeah. So whilst we're waiting, what you're saying is literally we do have a fighting chance, especially as young people, because the numbers are on our side. And
Absolutely.
what we should be looking at is what do we do with those numbers? And that's the question that we are faced with as young people of the 21st century. So
Absolutely.
I guess, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, once you hit on the right strategy, you cannot lose. It's not possible.
Yeah. Right. I don't see the answer. I don't see the answer coming. But anyway, as we are swiftly just.
Was the person who asked about fairness was a lady, right?
Yes.
Tell me if you should ask her. Maybe you need to do it privately, but that's fine. But I can ask publicly. She, depending on her age, probably has had a boyfriend. She might even be married. She should analyze for me because sometimes we think these things are exotic and very far-fetched. You can bring it down to your private life, individual life. So if you and met one lady and both of us were interested, tell me how that interaction would take place, whether it would be fair in the context that she answered the question or fair in a context of that's common sense. You see, you need to understand life is configured like that. There is ultimately the only thing I can tell you that life is about is competition. Life is competitive through and through. And where there is competition, even at the Olympics, there is nothing like fairness. It does not exist. People compete to win, and they will deploy whatever means they have got at their disposal to win. That's why even at the Olympics, you find people being accused of taking drugs, enhancement, and so on and so on. Because that contestation is at the core of animal existence. At the core. So get smart and understand how to contest and win.
Yeah. There is a question that came earlier, and I'm going to just bring it in from Praise Kafuneni. He says that given the absence of electoral reforms, and it speaks to what you're speaking right now, fairness, do we need to still keep on going to, because these are the issues, Dr. Moy, these are the issues. And if you do not have, and I'm going to speak as an outside person, but you're involved in politics. If you do not have the resources to be fielding political, what you call them, the people that are going to be monitoring the ballot boxes in in the deep rural areas.
But you've answered it for me. You see, you said if you don't have resources, because people are wanting to do me a favor rather than do themselves a favor. I don't need resources. I need Zimbabweans to start fighting for themselves. Go and protect your vote, not for Nkosana, but for yourself. Then I don't need resources.
Yeah.
That's your answer.
Yeah. So electoral reforms on that note?
Who do you expect to reform themselves out of power?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Who does that?
Yeah.
Nobody.
No one.
Nobody.
So why? No one. Yeah. Okay. So APA, Alliance for the People's Agenda, 2018. We saw it coming onto I think from actually 2017 coming onto the platform. The question is this: is APA a government in waiting, and what is it that is different that they're bringing to the table?
So what does the name of the party tell you? What does the name of the party tell you? This party is a platform inviting Zimbabweans to come to the party, and they must make it their party. They are very consistent. We are not going to do Zimbabweans a favor. Zimbabweans have been provided with a tool to make favors to themselves. So APA is attempting to change the way we think about politics and make us understand it is our agenda, not Nkosana's agenda. Once we understand, we'll change. I keep saying once we understand that, we will change our country. Yeah. For ourselves.
Yeah. And obviously, one thing that you do recognize yourselves as, and I think it's one of the values, you recognize yourselves as ourselves as social democrats. Why so? Why specifically social democrats is there?
Those two words in the same. Firstly, we are democratic, and also we've stressed very constitutional, institutional. Once you see, democracy is based on the people creating the instruments by which they will be managed. In other words, the instruments belong to the people. We make the rules, we obey the rules because they are ours. Therefore, the constitution, we must follow it, and so on and so on. So, democratic, okay? Social, because in any society, people will have different opportunities and abilities and so on and so on. If you're calling yourself a society, you must not leave anybody behind. You must create instruments for taking care of those who are less fortunate. Therefore, social. We believe in creating a society where each individual within that community knows there is a good reason to belong, because this society, this community looks after my interests too.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Perfect. I think Thomas coming in earlier on, he said Dr. Nkosana Moyo should be our next president if Zimbabweans we want real significant change. So that is a compliment coming through. But many people have, recognized your experience, Dr. Moyo, and especially in 2018, said that the way you conduct yourself is maybe foreign to what they are used to, and that it was not enough to achieve what obviously we want to achieve is freedom, economic, political, social freedom. What would you say in response to that?
Well, I always find that one amusing, because let's add to that. People say to me that I was too nice to be a president. So You know, it's fascinating that those things two are put together, because I want Zimbabwe to aspire to be what they are calling foreign. All Zimbabweans with money, all the families in Zimbabwe that have got money, send their children to those places they are calling foreign, because they recognize them as desirable. So why won't you desire the same for your own country? That's exactly what I want to do with Zimbabwe. That's exactly what I want to do with Zimbabwe. Create right your back door the country that you aspire for your children to grow up in, to go to school in, to hospital in. We must create it right at home. That's what I.
Yeah, and I guess one thing that I should say, I mean, in your corner is that one thing I've learned, I mean, you've been consistent throughout, because in 2018 you were in the streets meeting people one by one, and that's an attribute that speaks to accessibility. And even on this platform, trust me, we have reached out. We are not afraid to reach out, so we reach out far and wide. And it's not many people that, you know, especially if they've accomplished and they're aspiring, though they are aspiring for political office, they are not accessible. So yeah, it just leaves us wondering, to say, when you have a leadership that is accessible, what else do you want?
You know what that says? We've got, as a people, generally speaking, I'm afraid to say, we've got this warped sense of what importance means. People who see themselves as important behave in funny ways where they are not accessible. But what does that mean? I don't understand it. You are important for what? If people can't talk to you, you say you are important. What does that really mean? Yeah. We chef that kind of stupidity. Yeah. And they look at what is happening at home at the moment. Because of that chefdom mentality, they think that they can hold parties without social distancing, without masks, and so on and so on. Because of this mistaken concept of chef, how stupid is that?
Yeah. I want you to respond to this one, because, and I know we are really going out of time here, but I just want you to respond to Reggie, because Reggie Shumba is coming in and saying, Chikoro chakawandisa pana mudhara moyo. You won't rule Zimbabwe. Look at other African presidents who rule other countries. Apparently, too much education. And we spoke about this a little bit before this session. Would you just bring that discussion to the fore?
No, but you see, that question is similar to the one you just asked before about your approach is foreign. Reggie, I don't know how old he is and whether he's got children. Ask him, when he wants to go to what kind of doctor he expects to attend. When he wants his kids to go to school, what kind of teacher he wants the kids to be taught by. Ask him. Asnachkoro. Yeah? We are confused. There is nothing wrong with somebody who can see into the future in a way that the ordinary person can't, and help to take society there. That's what we want to do.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do. Get people who are competent, who are educated in their spaces, to help our society aspire and move into that space. There is nothing. All of these countries that we admire today came from places just like us, but they were aspirational enough to choose people who could take them there.
Yeah.
Mnangagwa ari kukuendesa ikupi? Ari kukuendesa ikupi? Tell me.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, very true. I guess what is coming to the fore, and just speaking to our guests, is to say we really need to start to think about these things and say, is military credentials enough? And these people that we're electing, do they have a track record? What kind of institutions have they started? What kind of institutions have they run? Were they successful? Are they still in existence? Because majority of our leaders, we do see that maybe they would have run institutions, but some of those institutions collapse solely because of them. But we still choose to go with them.
So can I help from my side? Let me tell you. Let me try and give you maybe a kind of summary framework. Young people in particular, if you really want to make a contribution to your country, you firstly, as a group, need to ask yourselves a question. Where do you want Zimbabwe to go? If you were to look 20 years down the line, what would you like Zimbabwe to look like at that point, 20 years down the line? If you can answer that question, then you have to ask yourself, what kind of person would be able to work with us to take Zimbabwe into that space? It's like if I want to go to the moon, if I want to send a team to the moon, I look for a team leader who has got certain attributes and qualifications to be able to navigate and fly the rocket from Earth to the moon. That's what I look for. So if you want to take Zimbabwe from here to 20 years, 50 years down the line, and you've got clarity what Zimbabwe should look like, then you will have part of the answer to what kind of person you need to take our country from here to there. Then the bit is, okay, I have in theory got a job description of what that person should look like. When I get applications from candidates, I now need to look at their history, their track record. Kuona akambozviita here. Wake wakwenza yini loku ena lumuntu. Yeah. If the answer is yes, then you are building the correct components. Somebody who has demonstrated the ability to do these things before, somebody who has demonstrated that they are not corrupt, they are competent because they've worked in finance, in industry, if that's what you want to build. They've been recognized by other people by being given jobs and promoted. These are things which you then say, okay, from this short list of candidates, let me take the best one who has got all of these attributes and ask them to lead us as a country to that place I envisage 20 years down. That's the process you should use.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think that is very, very powerful. And I think Ryan Joseph, whilst you are speaking, goes back to say you don't need to be very educated. And I guess it depends where you see Zimbabwe, going. And and if you want us to arrive at an uneducated future, then that is the type of thinking that we would need to adopt. Really, because of time, as we go towards the end, if we were to really fix Zimbabwe, what are the critical areas that we need to address?
Well, in terms of so at the moment, Zimbabweans, people don't have jobs in Zimbabwe. I know. So one of the first, and by the way, a functioning economy develops or creates what we call surpluses with which to do all of the other things you dream of. So a functioning economy is a must. Absolute must, because out of a functioning economy, you create jobs and you create the money to build schools and hospitals and roads. It all comes out of a functioning economy and nothing else.
Yeah.
So your starting point is make the economy work, create jobs, create surpluses with which you can then build all the other things that you desire. That's simple.
A quick question. Obviously, I think this is very important, and I just want you to address it. Dr. Moyo, Zimbabweans are divided. We are divided on the lines of political parties. We are divided on beliefs, whether that is Christianity, tradition, or etc. We are just polarized. How do we bring our people together towards, this bigger goal, which is obviously building our country?
Firstly, let's not go too far by thinking that different views are bad. Different views actually help you to refine your thinking. So if you've got somebody who is capable and the right leader for our country, they should welcome different views and listen to them very carefully. So different views and opinions are not a bad thing. Okay? But your observation is also correct, and therefore your question is correct. How do we get a leader who can, on the whole, unify us to be able to manage diversity, accommodate different opinions in a civil way, And they have certain rules that we abide by. And the rule that accommodates.
We have lost your sound for a little bit. I don't know what's happening there.
Was my gate ringing.
Okay.
So the fundamental rule is that once the majority has decided, those on the losing side have got the discipline to accept that the majority has decided and that's the way we go. But that does not mean you kill opposition and a disagreement. That you need to learn to manage diversity because it's healthy. In order to get that to happen in our country, we need to choose a leader who is confident enough to be able to listen to people who disagree with him or her, and they respect them, and they still mobilize people to facilitate for a conversation which produces a majority decision and then says, okay, we've debated, we've looked at all facets. This is now what we've decided. As a people following these rules, that's where we go.
Yeah. Thank you so very much, Dr. Moyo, for coming onto the platform and really gracing us. And for me, it was a learning spree, feeding from those that have gone before us and that are speaking out of experience, that are speaking out of knowledge, and just affording us, especially the young people, this opportunity to hear from you and to learn from you. Thomas coming in and saying, please, Zimbabwe, let's support APA and Dr. Nkosana Moyo. He is logically the most competent potential leader on offer. Vote APA, vote Dr. Nkosana Moyo. And I guess, you know, politics is about a competition between ideas, and really you coming to the fore and giving us your ideas, then, you know, gives us the space as young people to then make logical decisions, I hope. So thank you very, very, very much for affording us this opportunity. I just wanted to just give you, you know, an opportunity to just leave us with a few words. Yeah.
Well, from my side, I would like to thank you for creating the opportunity for us to spend an hour comparing our ideas, where our country is. If I may, I just want all of us to understand, myself included, that bottom line is that where our country goes is a personal responsibility. We must be asking what our country can do for us. We must be asking what we can do for our country to produce in future the kind of environment we would like for our children and grandchildren at a personal level. What must I do to create that? It's a personal project for all of us. Let's take it at that level.
Yeah. Where our country goes is a personal project, and let's be invested in that project. Our absence or our decision to partake or not to partake really is will determine where we end up. Really wise words coming from Dr. Moyo. Let me also just take this opportunity to thank again Biz Legal, the team that really supports us and makes our posters. They are the team that are responsible for all our branding. Do get into contact with us if you are looking for a team that can do your branding as such. Thank you to you, our viewers, for just being committed in this 1 hour and coming to be with us and wanting to learn. I do hope that you are inspired to start on a positive action path that will essentially lead our country ultimately to a place that we all want it to be. Thank you very much. I do want to thank APA. I do want to thank Dr. Nkosana Moyo just for honoring our invitation. We are really, really grateful. Please like and share the page. Share this broadcast as well, even afterwards. If you're watching it afterwards, please do leave a comment. So we also want to hear what are your thoughts about this broadcast. From me here in South Africa, and I understand Dr. Moyo is currently somewhere around the world. Thank you very much and good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.